What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at FakePigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down Wild Card Weekend and make some picks against the spread, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? This is probably the most excited I've been for a playoff schedule in a really long time because I think that this year more than ever we have the chance of seeing some great upsets and or some tremendous games with there being 6 during wild card weekend instead of the normal 4.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about how, normally, the division round is the one you want to get excited about because that's when they bring, the top 2 teams from each seed, they bring them in, plus the teams that advance. So it's always the better games. But with this weekend having 6 games, having 6 incredibly intriguing matchups, some on paper may not seem so intriguing, but I think if you break them down a little bit further, you might find some interesting ways to attack. And I'm incredibly excited, and I get to spend all day Saturday and all day Sunday watching football, and I couldn't wait. I can't wait. I'm like,
I won't get much work done on Saturday. Let's just say that I have to work and I'll be on my phone pretty much the whole day.
Yeah, especially with some of these games. Before we jump in, if you're enjoying the content, if you're enjoying what we're doing, make sure you mash the thumbs up. Make sure you hit subscribe. It really does do a lot to help us. Tell your friends. Let's make some picks. Let's pick some winners. Let's make some money this wild card weekend. Had a great NFL Week 17. Went 5-0 to make up for the terrible weekend that was Saturday. My bowl picks did not go well. It didn't work very well. But you know what? It's all right. We survived. We advanced. We make some picks. We have some fun. Okay. Let's jump into it. We're going to do this chronologically. So we'll start Saturday morning. We'll work our way through the games in through Sunday. And then we'll even make a pick on Ohio State, my Ohio State Buckeyes that got the win against Clemson. Shouts to Justin Fields. Shouts to the Buckeyes. They just played a hell of a game. We'll make a pick in them versus Alabama. But before we get there, let's go through the game. So we'll start with the game that I'm most perplexed by, and that's the Indianapolis Colts heading to Buffalo, getting 6.5. It got up to 7. It's gone back to 6.5. If it gets to 7, I think it'll get right back to 6.5. So if you see it at 7 and you love the Colts, jump on it. Don't think about it. I guess, Brian, where's your head at for this game? Because I have 2 outcomes in my mind. The Bills by 100 and just kick the crap out of them and look like the dominant team we've seen kind of down the stretch, or the Colts run the ball really effectively, look really good doing it, and steal this game on the road, basically.
Yeah, I'm looking at this game from the perspective of the total, and I really like this spot to hit the over because I think both of those scenarios kind of lead into that in that direction. With if Buffalo is kicking the crap out of the Colts, you're going to see the Bills passing offense able to just kind of do whatever they want to do on the field, and like we saw them do against Miami, their defense is able to create enough turnovers to give them short fields. And, looking at the stats, as good as Indianapolis's defense has been this year, they're in the bottom half of the league in both yards against and in net yards per attempt as well, which is something that Josh Allen is, top 5 in the league this year. He's hitting on a ridiculous clip in terms of his completion percentage this year. Indy's also allowed 4 of their last 5 and 5 of their last 7 opponents to eclipse 300 plus passing yards. So I think that's very telling about how their pass defense has kind of, they haven't been as good, and that's because they've been leading in a lot of these games. And then, when you look on the Buffalo side, where they're weakest on defense is against the run. And what does Indianapolis want to do right now? They want to hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor, let him pound the rock against teams, and then hit those play action deep balls to T.Y. and Michael Pittman. So I love this game from an over perspective, and I think that no matter who you like, if you like Indy with the points or Buffalo to cover this line, I think it hits the over.
Okay, so I got some nuggets I'm going to work in as we go along. The underdogs have gone. Where's my note? 17 of the last 22 wildcard games have gone under. No, I'm kind of with you. I like the over in this game. And in fact, if you like the over, which I like the over, patience is key. Now, I'm a little concerned because it opened up at 52 and a half. It's down to 51 or 50 and a half, depending where you look. Despite more money coming in on the over, which scares me, worries me. But sharps, even if they're right 60% of the times, that means they're wrong 40% of the times. 40% of the time. I don't know why I said that weirdly, but we'll go with that. But yeah, I think the Colts defense is slightly overrated, and I don't think they're quite as good as especially that first month and a half of the season with Darius Leonard and DeForest Buckner, and looking really strong. I was like, oh, this is like a legit, like could be a top 5-ish defense in the league, and they're probably more middle of the pack than most people will give them credit for. I guess my only concern about the over is the Colts want to run the ball and the Bills like to give up the run. If the Colts see that as an opportunity to keep Josh Allen and company on the sidelines, do they get a little more aggressive with controlling the clock, trying to slow it down? That gives the Bills just enough fewer possessions that this game ends like around 48 points.
I mean, I guess that would only happen in a world where Indianapolis is in the lead by multiple scores. Because if this is a one-score game and Buffalo is able to still kind of do whatever they want to do, that means that they're going to be able to go up and down the field, in short spurts. Their drives are going to be 3-4 minutes with big chunk plays in the passing game to Stephon Diggs, with a run or two mixed in there, because Indianapolis, their linebackers are really good in covering the backside of the backfield and or defending against the run. And, they have a bunch of older guys back there defending the pass, and Xavier Rhodes, who we all thought was completely washed, and then at the beginning of the year looked like a superstar again, but he's not going to be able to keep up with Stephon Diggs. So I'm leaning pretty heavily on the over. And like you said, if this continues to creep down and it gets into the 50 range, I'll like it even more.
Side note, I don't know if you saw the kind of semi-viral tweet that was going on about the podcast where they spend the first 20 minutes talking about
Nothing. Yes.
They're adjusting their headphones. I was adjusting my mic and my headphones, and I just me. I feel attacked. I've never been so seen. But that anyways. Yeah. So from you like the over from a side perspective. Are you betting this, and or if you're not, at where would you jump into the market? Where would you have to be? Like, where do you find yourself comfortable? Like, do you think the Bills are going to win?
So, I mean, if we were going on early season expectations, I would love Indianapolis right now. But after having a full season under our belts and watching a lot of this league, I really think that Buffalo is still being undervalued here as one of the top teams in the NFL. And I think they are a legit contender in the AFC because their defense has been playing a lot better, albeit, like I said, they do give up the yards on the ground, but they've been playing so good and giving Josh Allen so many opportunities of late. And this offense is something of, that we didn't expect to see anything like this with the addition of Stephon Diggs even, but on those notes, I like Buffalo to cover the line, even in the 7 range here, because I really do think that they have a legit shot at beating Kansas City and being able to keep up with them in a shootout in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, so the line, like the money seems to be pushing this number towards Indy despite more bets coming in on Buffalo. And I always hate to see that because I always feel like I want to be on the side where the movement's going towards. Mm-hmm. But like everything in me is saying bet the Bills. Like I'm with you. This team is really freaking good. And I think they have a legit chance to go deep into the playoffs. And if you look at some of the teams that Indy has struggled with, they were dominating Pittsburgh until they lost that game outright. They gave up, they gave 20 points to Houston. They gave up 20 or 27 to the Raiders. The Titans put up 45 on them. Like dynamic offenses that can throw the ball down the field give this team a lot of problems. Now, if you don't really have a super dynamic offense and you're going to be doing a lot of stuff around the line of scrimmage, their front seven is fantastic. It's the back end that has the issues, and I think Josh Allen's gonna be able to take advantage of that. I think he's got so many weapons. A healthy-ish John Brown, Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Cole Beasley. We'll see.
I think he
But
should be good to go.
I say just line up your receivers and let them roll. Like don't
Yep.
even dick around with Zach Moss and Devin Singletary and any of that stuff. Just Dawson Knox, 4 receivers, Verts, and just smash them. Because if Indy gets down, I mean, with Phil Rivers back there, like there's no coming back. So this is like all of a sudden the Bills are up 17-3 in the first quarter, like sayonara.
Yeah, that actually gets me more excited for a bet that I was looking at. But so I'm really leaning towards taking the over in the first half, 24.5, currently sitting on Bovada, because I do think that this is a spot where Buffalo is going to want to come out firing. Let's not screw around like we did with Houston last year and take it easy at all. So I do think that this is a spot where the Bills, regardless of what the score is, will not take their foot off the gas pedal, and they're going to continue to try to put points on the board.
If you're a prop guy, I know Brian's been doing really well with the props. I appreciate the ones he's been sharing with me because they've been doing well. I like Jonathan Taylor. You look at the yardage total, look at his longest rush total. The place that the Bills struggle on defense is against the opposing rush. And I think Jonathan Taylor could have a nice game here. Even if the game gets a little wonky, even if the Bills get up big, Jonathan Taylor is still going to be involved. Maybe look at him out of the backfield as a pass catcher as well. But I think targeting Jonathan Taylor in the prop game could be a nice way that no matter, if you're like, I like the Bills, but I can't really get fully behind them, that could be a interesting way to talk yourself into that game. We ready to move on to the next game? Yes,
sir.
Let's go with your most debated game, the LA Rams heading to Seattle, catching 3.5. Will it be John Wolford? Will it be Jared Goff? Will Cooper Kupp be available? There's a lot of questions the Rams have to answer, and yet this line opened at 4, it's down to 3.5. What is your biggest conundrum with this game?
Well, I feel like I'm falling victim to the same trap that they set 2 weeks ago with this line being so close and us both, being on the side of the Rams going into Seattle with Seattle kind of struggling of late. And I feel like I'm in the same situation, especially we really have no clarity about who's playing quarterback for the Rams. And yes, Wolford looked good. He can escape the pocket and all that kind of stuff against the Cardinals, whose offense was also led by some dude that looked like Taysom Hill, but is not Taysom Hill. And, I just don't know which direction to go in this game right now, which is the reason why, like, if I'm making a bet right now, I think my favorite side is the under for the game total of 42.5, as both times they've played this year, they've hit under 40. And even the last time was 20-9, with both defenses playing a lot better of late, especially Seattle's defense has been playing really well. And the Rams, their whole game plan coming into this game is going to be stop DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett on the outside, prevent Russell Wilson from being able to get those deep shots. And the Seahawks are going to have to run the ball in this game. And so
that's what they want to do, Brian. And that's why I'm 100% with you on the under, because you know who else is going to limit Russell Wilson and limit the passing game? The Seattle coaching staff. Pete Carroll and company are going to be like, no, we don't want to throw it. We don't want to use our best players. Let's just hand it off to Chris Carson, Rashad Penny, and Carlos Hyde, and just have the trio running into the line and falling down. I like the under a lot in this one. As I mentioned, 17 of the last 22 wildcard games have gone under. This is an under spot. If Wolford Wagon is your quarterback, I like the under. If Jared Goff is the quarterback, I like the under. I think I like the Rams a little bit more to cover the 3 with Wolford under center, especially if Goff's finger is a little messed up. He won't make as many good throws, but he does throw it down the field more than Goff had. And he actually uses his legs and can escape things on a 3rd and 4 or a 2nd and 7 just to create a little shorter. Now we do have questions also about who's going to be behind him, which running back, but the Rams have kind of made a way of, depending on which week it is and what Sean McVay has in his fever dreams, whether it's Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown, Cam Akers. I mean, I don't know, but at this point, we're not playing fantasy anymore, so we really don't care as long as they're productive.
Yeah, exactly.
I think both teams run the hell out of the ball. I think there's a lot of time of possession. I think this game will be really close. And if you're getting over a field goal either way, I'm really happy to take it.
Yeah, I can definitely see your point with saying that the Rams offense might actually be a little more efficient with Walford out there, just because we've seen how good Seattle's pass rush has been of late. And that's something that Jared Goff does not do well with. Whereas if the Rams are able to offer up that danger of the quarterback keeping the ball and running, it may limit the ability of the Seahawks defenders from just getting into the backfield and going after the quarterback as aggressively as they have been.
Yeah, and we saw last week that even the Niners held this team in check for basically 3.5 quarters until the floodgates opened for some reason. Both teams scored a ton of points, but Jalen Ramsey on DK has been doing a phenomenal job all season long. I don't see any reason why that would change. And then Tyler Lockett on the other side. And, I think they're going to want to attack them, and I think they're trying to run the ball, and I think Aaron Donald and company are going to do enough to slow them down. But, I think if I'm betting this game anyway, I'm looking at the under, and if I like the under, I'm probably thinking it's a close game. So I'm probably leaning the Rams there too. Let's go with my favorite game of the night. The Washington football team hosting Tampa Bay Buccaneers, catching 8.5. Maybe you can find a better number, a 9. I've already lined up and bet the football team plus the 8, and I've bet the Washington football team plus 310 on the money line. Woo! Give me all that candy. There's been two instances. I got 2 stats for you. 2 instances on the first one of 2 teams that were 7-9 hosting an 11-5 team. That was the Marshawn Lynch Beast Mode game, and that was when the Panthers upset Arizona. They were both 7-9. They both got the outright victory. There's also been 2 instances, count them, 2 instances of a home team catching a touchdown or more in the playoffs. Both those teams, 2-0 against the spread, 2-0 straight up. The Footballs win and advance to round 2. Let's go.
Ooh, man, that is a bold call. But I'm going to agree with you in terms of the line here. I like Washington to keep this game close with their ability to dink and dunk their way down the field and to just find ways to keep the clock moving and get first downs. I think that Washington will be able to do just enough to keep this game close and potentially even enter the fourth quarter with a lead, but ultimately fall to, Tommy Boy and his historically good performances in the playoffs. This is also another game that I actually like the over in for. I like Washington to be able to score on them with those little slow, methodical drives. Punch it in the end zone a couple times. If they're scoring 17-20, I think that Tampa Bay is going to be upwards of 27, 28, something like that. So I like the over, and I like Washington. Probably counterintuitive to what you would think in betting this game, but I think it sneaks the over too.
Here's a few things I'll say about it. If you like Tampa Bay, take the Bucks minus whatever it is and take the over. Because if the Bucks win, they're winning this game 45-3, and the over is hitting. They're crushing them. It gets really ugly really early, and there's probably gonna be 1, maybe 2 games that are just incredibly lopsided over from the jump, and you'll know it. And this is a great candidate. I could be very wrong getting all excited about Washington and backing them the way I am. And I've been wrong before. I'm sure I'll be wrong again, but I do have strong feelings. Now, the other thing I will say is be careful with teasers this week. I have one. I'll have a couple options at the end. Try and limit yourself to 2 or 3 teams, and don't go all like Steelers, Saints, Bucks, 3 teams, 7.5 tees, because there's gonna be 1 team in there that trips you up. So just be careful. Play it if you like those 3 teams. Play it as a round robin and play 3 2-team 7-point teases, and then if you happen to hit all 3 of them, guess what? You're still winning a ton of money. And if you don't, if Tampa Bay is the one that screws you, or New Orleans is the one that screws you, then you're able to mitigate some of that disaster and still make some money on the weekend. So some advice I would suggest: do what you will. I'm not telling you how to spend your money. I'm going to find a way to fall into some of my own traps, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I say if you like Tampa, take them with the points, take them over. If you like Washington, don't be afraid to sprinkle that money line. Over 3-1 on a home dog of over a touchdown. Give me. Anything else before we move along to Sunday?
I think you hit the nail on the head with that game. It's either going to be a really close affair that Washington potentially wins, or Tampa Bay is just going to absolutely crush them with their firepower on offense. Now, we haven't seen any sort of news coming out of Tampa about Mike Evans' availability, because if he's not there, that definitely alters what Tampa will be able to do on offense without that big-bodied guy on the outside.
And I honestly don't think we'll know until maybe Saturday. Like, there's no reason for him to practice at this point. Like, he knows what he's supposed to do. If they're going to pepper him with volume, they're going to do it. Other games, they've won by a lot without him really doing a lot. So, we'll see. I mean, Antonio Brown got fully unleashed last week when Evans went out. Chris Godwin's going to be fine. Gronk's there. I mean, they have plenty of weapons. I do wonder what the running game's going to do, because I do trust that front seven against the run. And if Fournette looks washed, if Rojo's not able to get it moving, that's going to show.
That could definitely, yes.
All four verts or nothing. Let's head on into Sunday, where my Tennessee Titans are the early game. They are hosting the Baltimore Ravens. A rematch of last year's playoffs, a rematch of this year's incredibly fun overtime contest. They're home. They're in a state of disarray, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The offense looks amazing. The defense looks terrifying. They've been kind of a mess, but they're catching 3 points. They're at home. Baltimore's coming in as the non-biased, non-fan in this contest. What say you, Brian Twining?
So I'm going to go the opposite direction as I did last year in the playoffs. And like last year in the playoffs, I'm going to go with the road team here. And I like the Ravens in this spot, even laying the 3. As much as I love what Tennessee's able to do on the offensive side of the ball, their inabilities on defense, I think, are going to be their downfall in this game. With Baltimore, their passing offense kind of leveling up over the last couple of weeks. They've kind of gotten that going. They've gotten Marquise Brown more involved. We've seen Mark Andrews have huge games. Lamar Jackson looks a little more comfortable in the pocket. He looks a little bit healthier since his COVID stay. And their defense is still the Ravens defense. They're still going to be able to limit what teams do in the passing game. And if they're able to stymie Derrick Henry at all in this game and make Tennessee semi one-dimensional, I think this game could be one of those where Tennessee is playing from behind early, having to throw the ball a ton. Derrick Henry just gets completely phased out of the offense, and Baltimore runs away with this.
So let's work through this. I don't know that that's crazy. I just don't know that Baltimore's the team to take advantage of the bad defense. Because the one thing that has affected them is a field stretching passing game. Deshaun Watson put on an aerial assault. Now Lamar has looked much better. I'll give him that. He the player he was in the first half versus the player he was in the second half is night and day. However, 34 against your Dallas Cowboys, who nothing to write home about. The Browns, 47, pretty solid. 40 against Jacksonville, garbage. 27 against the Giants, probably the best defense they played in that stretch, and they're still not great. And then 38 against Cincinnati. It's not like they played, Pittsburgh or, I don't even some of the better defenses in the league. Like they didn't really get challenged. So that would be my concern. Because the back end is the problem, but they also are very opportunistic and will find one or two ways to make a big play when it matters most. And that's a big part of why they won that game in the regular season in overtime. Now, Brandon Williams and Calais Campbell didn't play in that game, which should help their defense a lot. But Derrick Henry is a whole nother thing. And if he can get the ground game established like he wants. But I don't think this Titans offense, like, it's not inept. And in
No,
fact,
no, not by any
if
means.
they came out and were like aggressive with their pass offense, I think they could make this game ugly quick and not Lamar and company a chance to get back into it. Because now AJ Brown got banged up week 17. We'll see. Corey Davis was having a bad case of the dropsies in week 17. We'll see. But if the offense, the passing game clicks like it has the potential to do, they could go 45, 50 points easy. They can control the clock, slow it down easy. I have a hard time going against the Titans at home catching 3 points. Now, if you think the Ravens are going to win, like I'm not going to fault you because there is a lot of reasons. The way Lamar has been the past 5 weeks. If he's throwing the ball down to Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown and Des Bryant throwing up the X, like there's potential for the Ravens to win. And if their defense plays better than it did the past, again in the previous matchups, then yeah. But there's a picture of Lamar just sitting on the bench, completely lost. And this is and the thing is, it's funny is like, this is a big game for Lamar, and it's hard. He's kind of fallen into the bucket of, we don't trust you until you get to the playoffs and show us. And it may take a couple trips. Even freaking Peyton Manning had a few years where, is Peyton Manning good? Like, are we sure he's good? He hasn't done anything in the playoffs, so it doesn't really count. And then he just like dominates leagues and wins Super Bowls and does all this stuff. So, there's a long way to go. Lamar could easily have a great game, but there is a distinct picture of him in his jacket, sitting on the sideline, so sad because he just had an awful game. So I'm going to go with the Titans. You're going to go with the Ravens. I don't blame you. Are you looking at anything from the total side? I kind of like the over. I think both offenses can keep it rolling, but I mean, we're talking 54, 55 points here.
Yeah, no, that was something else I was going to say. I think this is also a game, much like I talked about with Indianapolis and Buffalo, where you would look at this spot and think, oh, Ravens, extremely difficult defense to do anything against. But if Baltimore is able to get out to a lead, like I think they will be able to do against this Titans defense, we've seen the Titans before. I mean, it was against the Packers the other week, shitty weather, and that game meant nothing to them. But if they get behind, they transition their offense from run first to let's get these huge 20-yard passing plays. And like you said, Baltimore struggles against that. So if Tennessee is forced into that, I do think they'll still be able to put points on the board, thus forcing Baltimore to continue to push the ball up the field. And I think that this is going to be hit the over no matter what the result of the game is.
And the other thing is, if the Titans manage to get up big, it's going to force Baltimore to throw. And this defense, especially the secondary, has big question marks. Yeah. And all of a sudden, Hollywood Brown's dancing in the end zone. And Mark Andrews is down on the 1-yard line with J.K. Dobbins running into the end zone. And all of a sudden, Lamar and company have produced 20 points in the matter of a quarter and a half. And now we're going over. So, yeah, I think the over, and 2 team tees, take the over in Indy Buffalo and take the over in this game. Tease them both down. Thank me later.
Another spot too that I really like in this game is checking that also is I really like the team totals over here. So the game total is slotted at 55 and a half. And both of these team totals, Baltimore is only sitting at 28 and a half and Tennessee is only at 24 and a half. So that's only 53. So you're getting value here on these team totals. If Vegas thinks that the game is going to 55 and the team totals don't even add up to that, I would be betting these right now before they start to creep closer to the total that's set for the game.
That's really smart. And the other thing is, if one of these teams kicks the crap out of the other one, they're probably hitting the over. So you're gonna elite. I mean, worst case scenario, you're gonna lose the vig, couple dollars, whatever happens to be. But yeah, like you're swimming in money at that point. And if the game goes over like you think, if you really think it's gonna go over, that's a great way to attack it. Let's head to the second game of Sunday. And let's talk about the Chicago Bears, 10 and a half, heading to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Brian Twining, what say you?
I think the Saints kick the living crap out of the Bears and expose Mitchell Trubisky's deficiencies as a passer. That's all I gotta say.
The Bear. I'm not going to go as crazy as I did with Washington, but the Bears cover this game. The New Orleans Saints are 2-9 against the spread in their last 11 games. as home favorites. They're going to do enough to win. And you know what, honestly, like, okay, so here's my question with Chicago. Can David Montgomery keep the streak going? Can he be, I don't need him to be 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, he doesn't be amazing, but can he be 85 yards and a score? Because if he can, this Bears offense can move enough. And as we saw last week, even against Green Bay, it was really good. They were, and Green Bay, they were like, oh, we got the, as long as we win, we're fine. And they probably didn't push as hard as they could have. But I think the Bears will do it. I think New Orleans does a similar game plan. And I think Chicago can keep just close enough where it's somewhere between 3 and 7. And maybe it's a late field goal that kind of makes it look a little closer as they try and, maybe they're down by 10 and they kick a field goal with like a minute and a half to go and then try and get the onside kick. Don't get it. New Orleans takes a knee. New Orleans wins by 7. I don't know. I'm not really sure how we're going to get there, but we're going to get there. If you give me 10 or 10 and a half, I'm taking it. If it's under that, I'm not sure I can hop on board, but like outside of FanDuel Sportsbook, it's basically 10 across the board. So yeah, I'm all over Chicago, and I've already actually bet it in real dollars.
Man, yeah, I just have a hard time taking the Bears. I've been burned a couple times by getting on their side and then watching them just take a dump or, just completely underperform. And this Saints team, I really think that the Saints, kind of like the Bills, are just kind of floating around in the weeds right now. And teams are just kind of like, they're the Saints. They're okay. But if their defense is able to do what we saw them do early in the season, where they're able to just completely shut down the opposing team's running game, which we saw the Bears early on this year, they couldn't get anything going in the ground game with David Montgomery looking like an absolute bust in fantasy, not going over 60 yards in pretty much any of the first half of the year. And then that's going to put everything on Mitchell Trubisky. And there's no way in hell I could trust that guy to keep this team.
What did we learn from Mitchell Trubisky?
That is true.
Everybody jumps on board. Get the hell off. It's the Titanic. It's going down. But when everyone's jumping off, you stay on. You ride that to victory, my friend. Now, I'm not saying parlay Washington and Chicago on the money line, but I'm not saying don't do it. So if you want to get a little reckless this weekend, like, it's great times. $5 wins you like 80 or 90. Have fun. See what happens.
I do like the under in this game, though. Sitting at 47, with both teams kind of being defensively led. I know the Saints have good firepower on their offense, and it looks like Michael Thomas might return this week too, and they have Alvin Kamara as long as he gets activated off of COVID. But that being said, like, New Orleans is kind of built on defense right now, and if they're gonna win this game decisively, like I think they will, it's going to be in the range of them scoring in the upper 20s and Chicago not really getting past 16, 17 points.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. I think looking at both their team totals of the under is an interesting way to go to. Let's talk about that final game of the weekend. It's Cleveland Browns getting 6 points at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Interesting matchup, interesting line. Obviously opened at 3, but with head coach Kevin Stefanski out, it's pushed it a little bit. There's some questions about who may or may not be available. And quarterbacks. This could apply to the Rams too, so keep an eye on the Wolford Wagons in their center. Quarterbacks making their first playoff start against a QB who isn't are 15-31 straight up, and 13-32-1 against the spread. So Pittsburgh by a lot.
This is the game that is going to show the reason why I've been bad-mouthing Baker Mayfield for as long as I have. And this is coming off a game against this same Steelers team who sat their top 4 defenders and still saw the Steelers only lose this game by 2 points. Mm-hmm. How on earth is this only a 6-point spread, even with the news that Cleveland's going to be without their head coach, their offensive play caller, going into Pittsburgh against a Steelers team who is going to be everyone's full go, they got they got James Conner more involved last week. He looked a little fresher. This defense is going to be chomping at the bit here to prove that they are still the steel curtain from that we saw early on in the season after struggling towards the end of the year. I'm all over the Steelers all the way up into 7.5, 8 range right now. I'd feel comfortable taking this.
I'm fine under a touchdown. I just worry that everybody jumps on board. If it pushes 7.5, 8, it's just everyone on the Steelers. That never works out well. That never. And maybe it will. Maybe this is the case. I will say the total has gone over in 12 of the Steelers' last 14 home playoff games. So something to think about. That even if the Steelers looked really productive, I think offensively they've done a lot. And actually, I was reading some things about Chase Claypool and how they were kind of limiting him down the stretch to get him make sure he was
not exactly not anymore.
No, they're going to unleash the beast. I'm really excited about what they're going to do. And Ben got his week off. We'll see how his arm looks. But I think this is a place where they could both have a decent game. And I know you're the Baker hater. I'm the Baker apologist. I think this isn't going to be a great spot for him, and I think he's going to get some heat for it. But he's made tremendous strides. I think he makes another stride next year and gets a playoff, and heads to the playoffs, maybe gets a win.
I will say, I also wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland winds up on top in this game. I mean, I love the Steelers here, but Cleveland has all of the makings for a team that could make a run here in this playoffs. They run the ball extremely well. Their defense has been playing, pretty good. They have a great pass rush with Olivier Vernon and Myles Garrett, which that can create problems against any kind of offense. If you're able to get to the quarterback and create turnovers, that's that's kind of the way you win here in the playoffs and be able to keep the ball away from opposing teams. So it really wouldn't surprise me, but I just don't see Baker Mayfield going into Pittsburgh and beating the Steelers.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's very, very reasonable. The Steelers have the best offensive and defensive line in probably the playoffs, like if you combined them. But Big Ben has had his woes. They haven't been able to run the ball like they do traditionally. And we've seen Baker and company rise up and make big plays. And, if this was week 6 and they hadn't really done the full install of the offense, I'd be a lot more concerned. Now, that being said, if things start to get wonky and they have to make adjustments on the fly, that could pose real problems for the Browns not having Stefanski there, who was amazing this year. So, before we hit the college football game, before we recap our card, talk about our best bets, all that stuff, I wanted to run down the Super Bowl odds and see if there was a number that piqued your interest, or maybe two. Because this is the time where if you want to jump in on a certain team, especially as you go lower, it's interesting to jump in on them. Now, I will say another way to attack this, and sometimes you get better numbers this way, it just depends on who you're attacking, is to take the team's money line each week and just kind of roll over your winnings. So, put $100 on the money line, and then the next week take the 100 plus whatever you win, put that on the money line, and just keep doing that because you'll get more money in the long run. And then if for some reason there's a COVID outbreak or there's something that you don't like the game anymore, you can pull out your wins at that point, where if you bet the team to win the Super Bowl and they don't win the Super Bowl, you don't win anything. So that's something to think about. That being said, the Chiefs are plus, these are all via DraftKings Sportsbook. Chiefs are plus 225. The Packers are 4.5 to 1. The Bills are 7 to 1. Saints are 7.5. Bucks are 10 to 1. Ravens are 11. Seahawks 14. Steelers 18. My Titans are 28. The Rams are 30. Colts are 40. Browns are 50. Bears and Washington footballs are both 100. If you're betting, are you betting any of those? Any of those numbers jump out to you as that could be a nice price as the playoffs roll along?
So I said it before, and this goes back to the first game that we talked about. I love the Bills as the third favorite going in here. I mean, you're getting 7 to 1 odds on a Bills team who their offense could easily keep up with what Kansas City's able to do, and with how good their defense has been, in particular their passing defense, which is what Kansas City kind of prides themselves on with Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill on the outside there. I think that the Bills have a great shot in this playoffs to win the Super Bowl, which for me leads into another bet that I am going to be making. Even though I am an NFC guy, I love the Cowboys, I love the NFC teams. I'm looking at right now, I can take a future on the AFC team winning the Super Bowl, and the line would be 3.5. And I think really, if it's regardless of who it'll be, Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City, I think that they have enough firepower on the offensive side of the ball or offer up a defense that could stop the opposing offense from the NFC in a way to win by 4 or more points in the Super Bowl.
Let me ask you a question. I'm trying to pull up the playoff bracket because it's all set up, right? Like, so the winner of Baltimore and Tennessee plays Kansas City, right?
So I think they reseed.
Oh, do they?
Yes.
Okay. Because what I was gonna say, and I mean I still believe this, but if you like the Bills, you should look at them as the AFC Championship champions because you can get them at plus 350, and if they win and face the Chiefs, they're going to be they're not going to be plus 350. They're going to be it's going to be, even if it's say 7 points, it'll be plus 180, something like that on the money line. The Steelers are 10-1. My Titans are 14-1. So if you like any of those teams to make a little bit of a run here, it is interesting. If you do like if you're looking at all the teams and you're like, I really like all of the AFC teams. I don't really love any NFC team outside of maybe the Packers or the Saints. You can get AFC minus 3.5 in the Super Bowl right now, which maybe you get a better number when it comes around, depending on who it is. But that it's something to think about. Like if you like the Bucs, you think the Bucs are ready to make a move after the way they've kind of dominated 4-1 to win the NFC. So the NFC is a lot more open, but because the Chiefs are minus 115, where the Packers.
It goes to show you, because with them having the only bye of the year, for each conference, like they have such a decided advantage over these teams, being that they have no risk of injury. They probably can be a little bit safer when it comes to COVID protocols. But that also leads me to believe too that I think this is the year where you can take the chance on those long shot dogs at the beginning of the week, in the off chance that as you get closer to game time, there's some sort of news that say Patrick Mahomes or Ben Roethlisberger or any of these big high profile quarterbacks test positive for COVID. And then that team is out there rolling out a Kendall Hinton for the playoff game, because the NFL has no room to navigate these games and or delay them any further than, a few days, not the next week.
Right. So you were right, by the way, about the reseeding. So the Chiefs will play the lowest seed. So, if it's the Browns, but likely it'll be the winner of the Titans Ravens. If Chalk advances, we'll see. It could be the Colts. And if that's the case, if you're a Steelers better, if you're Ravens or Titans better, you could be liking things a lot, because getting them in round 2 versus round 3, I think, makes a little bit of a difference. And as you said, more chances for weird stuff to happen. Okay, Brian, let's go talk some natty. Let's talk my Ohio State Buckeyes catching over a touchdown against the Alabama Crimson Tide. This game is scheduled for Monday. Now there is some COVID stuff there, so maybe it doesn't. But we're gonna address it as we know it right now. The Buckeyes are catching 8 after beating Clemson. Bama rolled Notre Dame as we expected. The fact that we didn't cover that game is the biggest crock of I've ever seen. But anyways, whatever, Irish, kick in the back door. It's fine. I don't need money.
Well, it also didn't help that Alabama kind of slowed down there in the second half.
Yeah. Okay. So what say you about this game?
As much as I hate to say it, I gotta kind of be on the side of what Ohio State's doing right now. Definitely proving the doubters wrong. And this is the same team that I thought would absolutely crush Northwestern as long as they had those big play receivers back. And we saw that with Olave back there for Ohio State. And teams are just unable to defend against that. And I think that Ohio State's defense is athletic enough to kind of keep up with what Alabama wants to do on the offensive side of the ball. And as good as Alabama has been this year, the fact that they lost Jalen Waddle is probably a lot bigger of a deal going into this championship game than we're thinking, because Mechie has been good and the other guys have, they've been pretty good, but they haven't really faced teams like Ohio State, who, if they were in the SEC, they would probably be contending for the SEC championship every year as well, with the kind of athletes that they get. So I think that Ohio State matches up really well against them in this game. I like them with the 8, and I also like the game over because I think this is just going to be another one of those. Let's just see who scores last, and that's going to wind up being the winner.
Yeah. So from a Bama side, there's only offense that's even like put up. It's going to put an offense like Ohio State has on the field as Florida, and Florida is able to put up 46 on them. So I think, and then what was the other game that got weird? I want to say Mississippi. Yeah, when they played Mississippi in week 3 and won 63-48. So those two offenses want to stretch the field, want to attack them. Now, the one thing I will say is the Ohio State secondary hasn't been great, especially Shaun Wade. Shaun Wade's cost himself a lot of money coming back this year. He is clearly a slot corner that can't play outside, and if they put him on Devontae Smith, Devontae Smith is going to be in the end zone a lot. I'm a little worried about that, but I like what the offense is doing. I love where Trey Sermon's at. I think if you like Ohio State, I definitely sprinkle that money line. If you like Bama, take the points because they're going to – I think if Bama wins, much like when we were talking about with the Colts and Bills, I think Bama wins and Bama crushes, 42-24, something like that. Or the Buckeyes keep it close or win by 7-10, something like that. So looking at that money line, I do like the over as well. I think both teams could easily get there. And I think Ohio State's front seven could do enough to slow down Najee Harris and put it all in Mac Jones, which like Mac Jones being a first round pick is hilarious to me.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that because I wanted to hit on that real quick. The fact that like we're looking at this Alabama team and people are talking about this as being possibly their best team that we've seen just with their offensive firepower, but we're talking about an offense led by Mac Jones, who the hell was Mac Jones prior to this season really? And on the opposing side, you have Fields, who was a top recruit coming out of high school, transfers from Georgia into Ohio State. We got 2 years now of watching this guy absolutely ball out. And to think that this Buckeyes team, and I hate saying this, is not on the level of what Alabama is able to do, especially on the offensive side of the ball right now, is, to me, it's asinine.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut the tape and keep this forever, just so I can run it back whenever I need a little pick me up. But yeah, I do have questions about Mac Jones. Obviously, Joe Burrow wasn't really anything, and then he transferred to LSU, and then it opened up when Joe Brady was there. But you look at all the studs that he had around him. Tua's really struggled. I still give him plenty of time because he has shown flashes of potentially being more than just a guy. But like Taj Boyd was drafted, and Jake Coker was drafted, and these guys have been drafted when they're surrounded by elite NFL talent that 5 years down the road, like Zach Mettenberger, we're like, oh, that's probably why you were so good. So, but that we'll have plenty of time to talk draft stuff. I like Ohio State on the money line. I like Ohio. I like the over in the game. Brian's taking Ohio State in the points and the over.
And the over, yes.
So Brian,
I really like the first half over as well in this game.
I like that too. Because I could see it even if like one of these teams gets blown out, for it to be kind of close at half where they both push each other a little bit. And both offenses are rolling, so it's not like they're going to be kind of trying to catch up and struggle. Brian, what is your best bet for Wild Card Weekend?
Oh man, only because I don't want to make it the first game of the week, because I would lean the over in Indianapolis and Buffalo because that's one of my favorite picks this week. I think my best bet for the weekend is going to have to go back down to the Steel City. I'm going to be there in Pittsburgh, and I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers minus the 6, minus the 7, minus the 7.5, whatever I can get them out all the way up into Sunday. I don't care what the line is. I love Pittsburgh in this spot. I think Baker gets exposed as being the bad cook that he was early on in the season, albeit he's played extremely well over the second half of the year, and I do think we see him progress into next year as well. But this is just not his time, and the Steelers move on into round 2 decidedly.
I can't decide which team I want to look like an idiot more on. I'm gonna take the footballs. Give me Washington plus the 8. The other one I was looking at was the Bears. So those, yeah, I'm gonna go with Washington plus the 8 as my best bet. The one thing I will say, and before we recap our betting cards, if you're looking for teaser legs, I like the Steelers. I like the Ravens Titans over. I like the Colts Bills over, and I like the Rams Seahawks under. And I also like the Rams. And I also, if you are on Tampa, I think Tampa in a teaser makes a lot more sense than Tampa minus like the 10 or whatever it is at kickoff. I think you can get some nice value there if you really like the Bucks. A couple, 2 or 3 is probably your best bet. The pros in Vegas that make money week over week tend to keep their teasers really short. If you want to get wild, get wild. It's wild card weekend. I don't really care. Brian, let's do something while I talk. Wild card weekend. Hard? Sure. That sounds fun. Hit me with your betting card for wild card weekend.
All right, so I'm going to be taking over 51.5 in the Colts at Buffalo Bills game to begin this wild card weekend with a bang. I'm going to go the opposite direction with a snoozer in Seattle with both the Rams and the Seahawks keeping the ball on the ground, kind of churning clock, and we see this game hit the under 42.5. And then for the nightcap on Saturday, I will be taking Washington with the 8.5 and teasing that up into the double digits of 14.5 or even 15, depending on if I want to buy some more juice there. Going into Sunday morning in the Nickelodeon Bowl, I think that's the game on Nick with SpongeBob. I'm going to be going the Ravens -3. That'll be on my card, and then in a little bit of a little side bet here, I'll be betting both team totals over. I'm taking the Ravens over 28.5 and the Titans over 24.5 in that game. I absolutely love those spots. And then going to Chicago and New Orleans, I'm going to take the under 47.5 and avoid the line. As much as I love New Orleans to just kick the crap out of them, there is a possibility that Chicago gets that backdoor cover. So I'll be just taking the game under 47.5 there. And then I already talked about my best bet of the weekend is going to be Steelers -6 all the way up into 7.5. I'll take it. So you can count that as I like them up in the 7.5. And then my natty pick is going to be Ohio State plus the 8.
Woo! That's a hell of a card.
Hell yeah, baby.
Bills -6.5. Rams, Seahawks under 42.5. The Washington football team +8, +8.5. Washington football team on the money line. Sprinkle, sprinkle. The Bears +10. Bears, New Orleans under 47.5. Steelers -6. As much as I hate it, a Steelers, and I'm gonna do a 2-team round robin 6-point tease with the Steelers -6, the over in Tennessee Ravens, and the over in Colts Bills.
I like that.
Pick is going to be Ohio State money line because obviously, and my best bet is the Washington footballs plus the 8. I love it. I'm on it. And Brian, we went almost an hour. If you're still with us,
Thank you.
Thank you. You're a real one. If you haven't done so and you've gone this far, mash that thumbs up, hit subscribe. Let us know your favorite bet down in the comments. We will react to them. We will be back for the divisional round. We will be back for championship weekend. We will be back for the Super Bowl. We will be back to break down NASCAR.
Yeah, I love it.
We are going to be back in full force. So if you like NASCAR, come check that out. We'll be hitting it from a betting perspective. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert. We'll talk to y'all next time.